Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Beth. Today we are setting up my son's custom bullet journal for the month of June 2024, and we are continuing our theme of Magnus Archives entities. June is Kenny's birthday month, and his favorite entity is the eye. Now, we also tapped into the eye when I did a Magnus Archives theme for him in October of 23, ? And so I needed to try and differentiate this particular spread from that one. I have a lot of supplies around me because it's his birthday. We're going to do some special things. A lot of white, a lot of black, gold, and green. I'm also keeping the torn paper element, but I'm only going to use it here on the cover page and then on the summary review page as well. I'm also busting out a lot of stencils for me to make eyes with, so lots of circles, lots of cog wheels, because I am taking inspiration from the inside of a cassette tape to give it a little bit of a steampunk flair. We're going to talk about the eye a little bit more later, but first let's talk about the eye's main avatar, and that's Jonathan Sims. He's the head archivist of the Magnus Institute. His first brush with the supernatural happens at age 8, involving a Leitner book that killed an 18-year-old bully. He's been afraid of spiders ever since. He takes over as archivist when Gertrude Robinson passes away. The archivist, as the avatar of the eye, can take statements, compel people to answer questions, and possesses an uncanny ability to know things they otherwise shouldn't. When John first encounters statement givers, he dismisses their experience as tricks of the mind and is initially quite rude. However, over time he becomes more compassionate and empathetic towards those traumatized or scared by their experiences. Speaking of being traumatized or scared, I was terrified to draw Jonathan Sims on this cover page. The fandom has a very specific sort of look that they have defined for Jonathan, and I was also worried about doing white gel pen over the dark, because again, drawing faces and people is not my forte. Throughout this setup, you also see me bouncing back and forth between pages on a spread very often. The reason for that is because I'm constantly waiting for gold gel pen to dry, white gel pen to dry, and then I even come over the gold with some paint here in a minute. And so it's constantly back and forth waiting for things to dry in this setup. I have about 6.5 hours of footage, and probably 2 hours of that is me off in my apartment doing other things while something is drying. I also had a little bit of fun here on the left side of the spread, putting this winking eye inside what would mimic of the inside of a cassette tape. On each spread, I do go over the gold with my A&O Gold watercolors. I'm going to only show you the one time just for time purposes. And then the Shakespeare quote I'm using on this page is, "Suspicions all our lives shall be stuck full of eyes," from Henry IV. And that is the cover page for June for Kenny's birthday month, where we're adding in a little bit of extra for his favorite, the eye. I do love the way that it finally turned out, even though I was terrified of doing this white gel pen person drawing over the top. Here I'm just checking to make sure everything is dry. I am going to put a green piece of paper because it's handy and close by in between those two pages just to make sure I don't have any transference of paint from one side to the other. Moving on to the calendar page, this is a standard grid calendar that I like to do for Kenny's setups. The boxes are 6 by 6 squares, so I have 3 on one side and 4 on the other. I just alternate them back and forth. Now let's go ahead and have a conversation about the entity that is the eye. The eye is one of the core entities in the series, and it is presented in essentially every episode. Aliases for the eye include the Beholding, the Ceaseless Watcher, and It Knows You. I thought it would be fun to add the eye to everyday objects to show that it is always watching. Here on the calendar page, I'm going to use a clock. It embodies that spine-chilling fear of being watched, exposed, or followed. You know, that creepy sensation when you know someone's eyes are on you? Yeah, that's the eye at work. But it's not just about the fear, but also the obsessive drive to know and understand everything, even if what you uncover might just lead to your doom. Now, let's talk about its role in the story. The eye is a major player, pulling the strings behind the scenes at the Magnus Institute. It's got its tendrils in the minds of its members, nudging them and sometimes even granting them some pretty unsettling powers. For example, it bestows upon the archivist currently the ever-intriguing Jonathan Sims that we saw on the cover page, the ability to ask questions and compel anyone to answer. Imagine having that power at your disposal. But wait, there's more. When someone is giving a statement in the presence of an archivist, they can talk clearly and coherently about their supernatural experiences, no matter how bizarre or terrifying. One quote from episode 111 of the Magnus Archives best sums up the eye. Being watched, being followed, having your deepest secrets exposed, needing to know, even if your discoveries might destroy you, the feeling that something, somewhere, is letting you suffer just so it can watch. Using the cogwheel shapes from the center of a cassette tape also play well with the clock, since the clocks typically have varying cogwheels as well. I did purchase this stencil set off of Amazon. It was between $5 and $6, I think, US. I will make sure that those are linked in the description box below if you ever want to pick those up. Again, I did go over all of this gold with the gold watercolors as well to make them shimmer just a little bit more. Going to go ahead and remove that green piece of paper. I think we're good on this page, and go ahead and move on to Kenny's finance tracker as well as his notes page, which is just a big empty brain dump page for him. I'm going to continue my theme of putting the eye on everyday objects, but this one actually also appears in an episode. So one of the artifacts of the eye is a hand mirror. The mirror appears in episode 60, Observer Effect. The episode focuses on Rosa Meyer. She's clearing her brother's belongings after his death. In the last box she opens, she finds the hand mirror and a typed note that reads, "Behind you." Turning, she sees nothing in the window, but in the mirror, she glimpses a huge face with bright red eyes. She drops and shatters the mirror, and the face disappears. Since then, she has constantly felt watched, fearing that she might be going insane. Rosa comes to the Magnus Institute more to find out why her brother had visited there than to give a statement, and then later she has a full mental breakdown. For utilization of this spread, we have pared back Kenny's finance tracker from a full-blown finance tracker to just a spending log. So we have columns for him to put in what he purchased, the amount, whether it's a need, a want, and then that third column is a private one that he is tracking that he asked me to put in. If you look back a few months, there were also locations for him to track his paydays since he gets paid every other week, his tips that he gets weekly, and we just kind of got a little too cluttered and felt like the thing was just to track what he was spending and when. Also important to note is that when I did my pencil sketch, I kind of knew where everything was going to be, but I didn't know what color everything was going to be. And I made those decisions on the fly while I was doing this setup. So here, I really thought I was going to have a black hand mirror. I ended up with a green hand mirror. And then I didn't know what areas were going to have gold and which ones that were going to have black or green. Here I decided to color not only this cogwheel in the gold, but also the face of the mirror in the gold. And that was totally a surprise decision for me. I didn't know I was going to do that, but I do love the way that it turned out. And now we're going to pause and reflect, like it says at the bottom of my cat teacup, while we wait for things to dry. That is it for his notes page and spending log for June. We are going to go ahead and move on to the weeklies. Now, even though this is his birthday month, and he does have a preferred spread for his weeklies where we fit 2 weeks onto one spread, I shook it up a little for him this month, and I'm surprising him with something different, but it's still going to work. On the right side of the spread, we are going to have 2 columns, one each for his weekly daily boxes. On the left side of the spread, I'm going to put 2 different task lists, one for one week, one for the other, and we'll see how he likes it. I changed it up mainly for me because I'm bored of doing the same setup, and he'll have to tell me whether he wants me to repeat it or if he wants me to go back to the tried and true setup that we've had for months. So on the right side of the spread, I have a big bold header for the number of days that this is going to cover. Down the center columns where we have the circles is where I will put Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then on either side, we will put the date. So those are his 2 weeks of where he can put in daily appointments and that sort of thing. The bottom side of that left spread, like I said, is going to be 2 different rolling weekly task lists. But what am I drawing above it? So episode 158 of the Magnus Archives introduces us to the Panopticon, a word that derives from the Greek word for all-seeing, and uses the very real setting of Milkbank Prison in London as its inspiration. The architecture consists of a rotunda with an inspection house at its center. From the center, the manager or staff can watch the inmates of the prison. The episode is full of pivotal spoiler moments, so I won't go into too many details. Many entities have accompanying rituals. For the eye, that ritual is known as the Watcher's Crown, and the Panopticon has played host to the ritual attempts not once, but twice. The Panopticon was not the easiest thing to draw, and there are actually more doors. If you look at a Panopticon photo, I'll try to remember to pop one in. My doors actually got a little off-center, off-kilter. I think they look fine in the long run, but I chose to go ahead and put an eye, of course, in the top of my Panopticon tower to symbolize that warden or officer that would be sitting there trying to watch all of the prisoners at once. And then in a very last-minute decision, I decided to make my doors black. I felt like the page was just missing some contrast with those white doors. You can see the difference here before I come in and get them all painted black. And I definitely do like them black, but don't look at the doors too closely because they're definitely not all the same size. They're not necessarily all in the same position, but it did turn out all well in the end. And I tucked in some additional cogwheels here at the bottom. Again, it's a new setup. Not sure how it's going to work for him. He's already using it. We are partway through the month. I haven't checked in with him to see if he likes it yet or not, but I'm sure he will tell me. We're going to go ahead and flip over and do the next couple of weeks. And I'm going to set it up very much the same, just changing the artwork and then flip-flopping what was on each side. So I'm going to put the rolling weeklies on the right and the calendar blocks on the left. On this page, I'm taking inspiration from episode 23, Schwarzwald. It's the statement of Albrecht von Clausen, and it regards a tomb discovered in the Black Forest near his home estate in Germany. Curious, Albrecht enters the mausoleum and he sees a marble slab in the center of the room concealing a staircase. So of course he goes down it. The room he enters is lined with damp books on marble shelves, each engraved with a small open eye. On the floor, Albrecht spots a coin and a book, and it's the coin that I'm illustrating here. The coin features the letters JW, an image of a man with long flowing hair, and the number 1279. The reverse side bore the words "For the Still," for the silence. A few nights later, while Albrecht was out walking, he's ambushed by a man from the cemetery. Albrecht had spoken to him before, and the man seemed okay, but now the man is hatless, revealing his bald head and empty eye sockets. Smiling, the man reaches for Albrecht, but suddenly snaps his head up as if he hears a gunshot, and he vanishes into the air. This prompts Albrecht to depart the area and take the very first coach home. It was only during the journey that Albrecht realizes that the coin which he had taken was now missing. This episode is actually super creepy, and I cut out a lot of the things that make it even creepier because, again, spoilers, I already give y'all too much. Alright, our weeklies are finished. We are ready to move on to the final spread of this setup, just double checking to make sure everything is dry. And this is going to be Kenny's playlist. He does like to have a playlist for every month, as well as his review or reflection page for June. I'm going to start by using that same stencil to go ahead and put in our big, bold graphic headers. But since the archivist is the avatar of the eye, it's only fitting for me to use the archivist's tools of the trade, a cassette tape and a tape recorder, to round out the month. After all, the items are almost sentient in their own right. The tape recorders are digital magnetic recording devices the archival staff use to record audio versions of statements. They switch to tape recorders after Jonathan Sims discovers that the truly supernatural statements cannot be recorded on laptop. As his powers grow, the recorders appear during significant events, turning on and off at will. They also begin following other archival staff members around, showing a particular fondness for Martin, who we met in The Lonely, the setup for February. The cassette tape and the tape recorder also work great on this playlist page, at least for me, because I am of the generation that began its music listening experience on cassette tape. I did abandon the ruler between drawing the cassette player and the cassette tape. I was just really tired of it. It just takes so much more time, and I decided to just freehand the cassette tape, and it turns out perfectly great. This is another page that I really had to jump back and forth between drawing times for things. So going ahead and stenciling in the white part of this cogwheel and then going to the side to work on it for a little bit, put on our headers for his reflection page. I also use ruled lines a lot for him on the reflection pages. Just makes it look like definitely this is the area you're supposed to be writing in for this reflection. On this particular setup, I used a very light Tombow gray to do that. But once it was done, the moments area seemed a little bit lost and unanchored, so I went ahead and framed it out with the gold gel pen just to give it a little bit more of a specific space. Now on a tabletop cassette player, the top of it has a whole bunch of holes. That's the speaker. And I am putting in a frame of gold dots so it looks like there is an eye in the midst of the speaker as well. I put in some more ruled lines on the playlist for song title and artist, and then I took a tea break again while everything was drying. So there you have it. The eye is all about the fear of being seen and the desperate quest for knowledge, no matter the cost. It's a crucial part of what makes the Magnus Archives such a gripping listen. If you made it this far, leave me an eye emoji down in the comments and let me know if the eye is one of your core fears. I love that this theme falls in the middle of our year as we discover the entities in the Magnus Archives. We have 6 more fears to explore. Until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know who or what might be watching and listening. If you like this video, you know what to do. Give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one.